Nicolas Cage is probably one of our generation's definitive actors.
Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man Andy Gillard here. Hope everyone's keeping well in the world right now.
What a guan, everybody. Matt Guy here. Hope everyone is having a splendid bank holiday weekend.
Doesn't deserve to be brought up, does he? Ever again, that word. Hello, everyone.
Fellas, we okay? I mean, obviously this is dropping on Bank Holiday Monday, but we are recording on the Bank Holiday weekend. Have we enjoyed the sunshine? It feels like summer is finally upon us.
It's beautiful. Everyone's in a happier mood when the sun's out, unless you're sunburnt, of course. But yeah, it's nice to just have a bit of sun. Hopefully it stays a while and we can get the beer gardens out again and sink a few pints.
For the listeners at home, obviously not here, these two are both wearing black vests, looking like some kind of Legion of Doom ripoff, and it's quite disturbing, to be honest.
Legion of Doom bar. What will be if we're anything? What do you not think? Do you not think me and Andy look devilishly handsome in our vests? Shoe?
If you're in a certain type of bar, I suppose, yeah. But
I've just realised in my camera how fucking pale I look. I'm like almost glow in the dark. I am that white currently.
I thought the ISO settings on my webcam were all out of kilter.
he's just part albino.
That's what it is. I've got a story to tell. I just want to tell a quick story while we're talking about the sunshine and being out and about, and about the clothes we're wearing. So I've been in Liverpool for a wedding this week, and it's the first time in got to be 18 months I've worn a suit. And Tom Kearney, good friend of the show, was also wearing a suit. We were both dressed in 3-piece navy suits, walking around Liverpool city centre at about 10 in the evening. We walk across this band of youths, meddlesome youths in the street, and I thought to myself, "Fucking hell, here we go. We're going to get bummed here. We're going to get beaten up, bummed, and left for dead." And this is Northern hospitality summed up in one conversation. We walked past, and all we heard was, "Hey, mate, yo's look fucking dapper." And that's and I was just like, "Oh, thank you very much. That's very nice of you." And that was it. We didn't get beaten up. We didn't get nothing. Just paid us a compliment in the street. It's been a class week. Brilliant.
It's nice of Paul O'Grady to make an appearance on the podcast then.
Absolutely. Do you think that was a good impression, Stu? I thought it was.
It wasn't as bad as you were making it out to be honest.
Yeah, I was quite impressed.
That part of the world I'm pretty good at. It's when we get into like the realms of Scotland, I'm not so good with.
It's awful because wherever I am in the UK, whenever I'm talking to anyone, I notice myself slowly slipping into their accent. And they fucking hate that in Scotland. They do not like to hear my cod Scotch accent at all. They also don't like it when I call them Scotch either, so I should probably not do that, but there we are.
It's like Blake, the human language sponge that he is.
Yes, Blake from California, if I remember correctly, who's got
Irish,
the most travelling accent I have ever heard. So, fellas, we are here to discuss a brand new film that was released on the 21st of May this very year. So, the year is, I'm taking you back here, 2004. A film has just landed. It's a zombie movie. In fact, it's the first zombie movie that a young Andrew Gillard has seen in an actual cinema, if you can remember what cinemas are. That film was a remake of the 1978 classic Dawn of the Dead. It was a feature film debut for that director, and people sat up and took notice of this new name in horror, Zack Snyder. Except it didn't turn out to be a new name in horror because it took 17 years before Zack Snyder returned to Dance with the Dead. And that would be 2021, the year of the Snyder, as it's turned out so far. That is when he finally returned to the world of The Walking Dead with his hybrid genre bender of a movie, Army of the Dead. It's a heist film set in a post-apocalyptic Las Vegas. Before we get into Army of the Dead, what did you think of Dawn of the Dead, the remake? We fans, not fans? Where did you lie on that scale?
I enjoyed it. I mean, at this point, was this the catalyst of that zombie resurrection? No pun intended. Or would things like 28 days later and that had that already come by this point?
They were both out in 2004, if I remember correctly. So they sort of went hand in hand in bringing zombies into the 21st century.
If I remember, because I haven't seen it, probably it's got to be 10 years now. I think this is what inspired. Christ, what are the name of the games? Dead Rising, I think. The game when it's in the shopping mall.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, and that started that wave of decreasing quality zombie films. Basically, I mean, you've got to admire it on its cultural impression alone. Then, in that case,
Stu, were you a fan of the Dawn remake?
Yeah, I think very similar to you. I can't remember a zombie film before this that I watched in the cinema, to be honest.
No.
Even though it was, 21 at the time? So, yeah, when I said before about American Werewolf in Paris, where me and Dean sneaked in underage, because he looked about 40. So, but yeah, I liked it. I mean, I'm sure we mentioned it a few months ago on here, that I couldn't remember which one it was called, the one in the shopping mall. I enjoyed it. I thought it was silly, it was fun, it was everything you wanted a film like that to be, especially at the time, and not having anything like that. Well, in the space of the last 20 years, anyway, from when we saw it. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I've seen it again since, but that's no judgment on how much I liked it, because I probably should go back and find it and watch it again, because I did enjoy it at the time.
Yeah, the script is by James Gunn, and I didn't really know who James Gunn was then, but obviously you see him now, and I love his work. I think his script work is just sensational. He always brings a good sense of fun to the movie, and I think that's exactly what he did there. The other thing that film brought, as far as I'm aware, in 2004 with 28 Days and with Dawn of the Dead, that was the evolution of the zombie. That is when we got the storm in the teacup that was the fast zombie. Prior to that, zombies shambled and just meandered after you. With that was when they would get up and chase you down. And I remember a lot of people hated it purely because zombies shouldn't run. What are your opinions on fast-moving zombies?
It's a tough one.
Well, it's like white men can't jump. They can, and it happens. So it was why. When was Z, whatever? When was that? About 10 years later, something like that.
Yeah.
And obviously the book of that was probably around about the same kind of time. No, it's just different. These things do not exist, so it doesn't matter. That's the main answer, isn't it?
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer my zombies to be your typical slow, cumbersome, anyone can outpace them kind of zombies. But I think the way that they're always sold when they are fast zombies is that they've never died. They're just an infection causing the nervous system to go. And it seems like the two are kind of always mutually exclusive of each other. Maybe it's because in like the fast moving zombie world, they're more akin to more of kind of jump out thrillers, whereas the slow moving zombies probably more akin to a straight up horror kind of genre because of how they're going to scare you. I'm not sure, but I do prefer the shambles. I'm hungover zombie, to be fair.
I think that it makes sense that when a person first turns into a zombie, they've still got their body as is, so it would move quicker. And then obviously as they age, their body would slow down, much like a normal human body would do, because they don't have the blood pumping, the muscles would decay and atrophy. So I think it does. I think it makes sense on a biological level. I know we're talking about a ridiculous fantasy world, but
I'm trying to look for what I consider the quintessential Bible of zombies, and basically what this book says goes. And I'm trying to find where on the shelf it is.
Is it the Max Brooks one?
One moment, caller.
He's really looking for the zombie head that he brought back from Liverpool.
That's it. Yeah.
That's what really happened to them kids. And unless he listens to this, he'll never know that we're talking about how he's killed. And that's why he's wearing a vest, because all his clothes are in the wash.
Here he is.
I appreciate that. That doesn't make pretty exciting podcasting, but yes, it is.
Yes, this is Max Brooks. It's great. I really enjoyed that. Max Brooks, he's written a couple of the zombie world's survival guide type things, if I remember correctly. Very, very good writer.
I'm hoping that this will serve me, while silly now, in the future, I'll be the one laughing, to be honest.
That's the plan. Yeah, he's quite a prolific zombie writer. He did the Extinction Parade, which was a really good comic book series. 2014, that has gone very quick, but yeah, excellent stuff. And he's also the guy behind World War Z, or World War Z, if you're from England. But yeah, great.
World War Z.
So yeah, preconceptions about Army of the Dead. Had you seen much of it going into this movie, or did you go in completely blind, Stu?
I saw the picture of Zombie Tiger and knew I was going to watch it, so from then on, went in blind.
Matt, had you seen much about it leading up to it?
I'd seen a very early trailer for it and decided not to watch any more because I didn't want any overriding preconceptions and trying to kind of taint anything about it. I mean, it looked anything Vegas related, really, I'm down for, to be honest, in any capacity. So I knew I was going to watch it, and I just thought it would be a big bombastic romp going into it, to be honest.
Yeah, very much the same. The trailer that they released, I can't remember if it was the first or the second one, where they did it to the soundtrack of The Gambler, the Kenny Rogers song. I loved that. And then obviously seeing the zombie tiger, like, it was genuinely quite exciting. I was really, really looking forward to this movie. But yeah, we'll get into it in a sec. So the synopsis of the film: after a zombie outbreak in Las Vegas, a group of mercenaries take the ultimate gamble by venturing into the quarantine zone for their greatest heist ever.
They're not what you think they are. They're smarter. They're faster. They're organized. What is this? It's a goddamn zombie tiger.
So obviously from this point onwards, a spoiler alert is in effect. We're probably going to cover the main beats of this movie, so if you don't want it spoiling, just hit pause and come back to us when you've finished. And that sounds like a helicopter is going down.
I mean, Beirut, not Ashford Park. What's going on outside?
When you just said, I've read the book, I'm ready. No, that's
Snyder and his team.
Planes are falling from the sky.
Yep, if you want to stick around and listen to what we've got to say and then make your own mind up on whether or not you want to buy that, we will give you our thoughts, good, bad, and indifferent on this one. So I think we should start really with what we enjoyed about this movie. Going in, immediately, before I even knew this was Snyder, I knew it was Dave Bautista, and that's reason enough for me to give a film a chance. And I actually thought he was decent in this movie. I was genuinely invested in his story, which isn't something I can say for all of the characters, but I thought he was really good. What did we think of the acting in this one? Is there anyone that stood out, or good or bad in this?
I'm not sure where Batista gets this carte blanche from, because apart from Guardians of the Galaxy and Stuber, is it Stuber?
Yeah.
Is that the name of it? I'm not massively over enamored by him, to be honest. And I should be as like the wrestling bias, but I just don't really. I don't see it. I don't think he's a very exciting or any. I don't. He's got the charisma of a. I don't know, of a shuffling zombie. I just. I don't see it. Change my mind.
See, I'm completely the opposite with him because he's not The Rock. He isn't that big bombastic actor. He's more of he's almost a character actor, but he looks like an Adonis, which is quite unusual because generally the bigger the muscles, the smaller the interest in their actual acting. But he, like having heard him on a few podcasts, he seems to genuinely appreciate the art of acting, to sound like a wanker for a minute. Like he's genuinely put in the hours to become a good actor and not just be big muscle man to stand there and look muscly.
Yes, I mean, from my point of view of not really knowing him from wrestling, I mean, obviously I knew of him, but didn't know him because I wasn't in it at all at that time. I've got it here. I mean, after this, it's a shame that he's not 10 years younger because he could do shitloads of these films, and I'd watch every single one of them because I thought I loved him in it. I thought he was great.
Anyone else in the cast that you particularly liked?
The helicopter woman who wasn't supposed to be in it.
Tig Notaro. Yeah,
Yeah.
she was great. And I didn't realise until Dave Evans, friend of the podcast, he sent me a link saying that she was replacing Chris D'Elia, who is an absolute fucking monster. So she was never on set with anyone. Dave Bautista hasn't even met her yet. I never would have guessed. I thought they did a really good job covering of that.
I mean, Matthias Schweighofer, he was quite entertaining, and his kind of relationship with Amari Hardwick's character was very funny, and that gave. I mean, it's very tropey though, isn't it? They all fit into a nice predetermined. As is the thing with heist films, you've always got the bagman, you've always got the locksmith, you've always got the man with the Gatling gun. Not Gatling gun if it's a heist film, for fuck's sake, but you know what I mean. You've always got like archetypal roles, and they all fit in quite nicely. But the way that they bounced off each other, especially those two, I thought was quite entertaining. Gave it a bit of heart amongst the chaos.
It was such an 80s film for that kind of thing, where everyone was cast and you knew exactly what they were going to be like. The camp German, it was you had the muscle. Like you just said, about you had the camp German, you had the muscle. I mean, her being in that role being recast was different because obviously originally it was a normal helicopter pilot, normal brackets. You had the eye candy as well, and it was like an 80s film now. I think that's probably why I loved it so much.
Probably, yeah. I thought the dynamics of the team in general was really good. I thought the team that Batista built up, so Ward, his name was, Ward's team, I felt that everyone had their role within it. And yes, it was very generic in the terms of the film, but the way they worked together, I thought worked really well on screen. Like they did have a purpose to be there. It wasn't just a case of we just need numbers. They did have reasoning behind it. I think that worked quite well.
Yeah, even the Terminator being an arsehole again in yet another role as the company man with the glasses. He was in Sarah Connor Chronicles. Matt, you looking quite confused there.
I'm just staring at pictures of Nora Ars and Arnie Zeder at the moment.
It's another one for the body bag. Yeah, he was. I thought he was quite funny. I mean, I know seen him in a couple of things before. But yeah, he's just going to play an arsehole again here. And he did perfectly.
I like Garrett Dillahunt. I think he's a really good comic actor. And most of the things I've seen him in have been comedies. So to see him in this, he's always been a bit of a dick, but to see him in this type of role was a bit of a departure for me. But it worked perfectly. I thought he did really well. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this film, I liked the hierarchy within the zombies. So the way they had these like 3 tiers to how the zombies live, basically. So you had your king zombie, Zeus. You had his group of alphas, so they were like the if he's Zeus, they're the gods of Mount Olympus, basically. And anyone who the alphas turned were just shamblers, so they're just the normal people. I thought that was a really clever thing. I don't think they explored it enough, if I'm being brutally honest. But if we get to see more of that, I'm quite invested in where that could go. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, skipping very much to the end. The only way that they can drag a second film out of this is by doing backstories and then the immediate present, and backstories then the immediate present, because they can't do the same film again.
Well,
I wouldn't put it past them, though.
Well, no, unless
He's-
what people think this film actually is happens, but we'll get onto that a little later. But yeah, they felt like an actual, and I mean this in the nicest way possible for a Zack Snyder film. It felt like actually some thought was put into it, and there was an actual plot, which was quite nice. And like they've put a bit of depth into what's going on, and it didn't feel 100% like you can just switch off and just watch it for funny gory deaths.
Are you going to say something, Stu?
No, I was going to say, because I mean, we'll mention it later, how you can quite easily take this for a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth infinitum films. But yeah, we'll leave it to later.
Actually, I think it's a good point. No, I do think they opened up quite a few possibilities, which I do think is a bonus, because obviously there is this alien element to it. So there is a universe of stories that can be told with where this goes. It doesn't have to stay in the horror zombie genre. So obviously when the zombies get killed, you see this blue light that dies within their eyes. And they're saying that this is some kind of alien entity that's what's brought the zombie plague to Earth.
Well, there were ships. There were ships in one of the scenes.
Yeah, there's UFOs at the start, isn't there?
There are quite a lot of little hints here and there where they could take this off in any direction. So right at the beginning, we see them leaving what we assume is Area 51, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where they're leaving Area 51, obviously that's got the history with aliens and everything. But Zeus, the king zombie, he's wearing dog tags. So it looks as though that the American government were experimenting on their own. So there's like a conspiracy film there that they could do quite easily. You've got the alien film that you could do there. They have opened up a world of possibilities, which is something I wouldn't really associate with Zack Snyder. He doesn't tend to give that much of a thought to these things. He's very tunnel visioned into what looks good rather than the story being half decent for a change. Going back to the beginning of the film, I actually thought the first act of this movie was excellent.
Yeah.
I thought that was probably one of Zack Snyder's strongest starts to any film. I thought the opening 10 minutes with Zeus breaking free and ending up in Zombieland. I loved the scene where Zeus was in Zombieland, and you were seeing the heroes of the film interspersed with them stood there holding a photograph of who they really are. So like Omari's character, whose name escapes me at the moment, he was a philosophy graduate. And you see him stood there holding a picture of him graduating university, and then it cuts to him with a chainsaw ripping through zombies. I thought it was really well done. The whole bit where Tanaka comes in and gives them the job on what to do. It doesn't make sense that Tanaka doesn't give them the code to break into the vault, because it's his vault. So that doesn't make sense, but I'll let that one slide. I love the scene where they're explaining what's going to happen within, I was going to call it Zombieland, but within Las Vegas. And the camera is panning around all of the heroes doing the Avengers shot. And I just wondered for a minute, is that a big fuck you to Joss Whedon? Is that Zack Snyder giving the middle finger to Joss Whedon? Yeah, I loved the beginning to this film. I thought it was absolutely superb.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of it?
It was great. I mean, I love a montage of like the world falling apart, and I think they did it really well. And they got in all of the Vegas elements in it that you expect as well. And you know, how often have we had a zombie film given this kind of budget to be able to just go fucking shit crazy with it as much as they want? And if you're going to allow one person to do that, you'd want it to be Zack Snyder in that respect, because you know you're going to be seeing something visually spectacular. Although I'm sure it's in your notes about the dead pixel thing. Have you read about that?
I saw the headline and I skipped over it, but carry on, because as we'll get on to, I got a little bit bored reading about this film.
Well, my manager at work, we were talking about the film, and he said, I've only just bought this new telly, 65-inch, like top of the range telly, and there was a few pixels on the screen that were just completely like blank. And I was like, oh, I hope it's not your telly, mate. I'm sure there's like other people who must have had it. And then I read about it, and it was like, for some reason, what they brought out on Netflix had a fault on it where a few of the pixels on the screen were dead for people. Just an odd thing to have.
It's something to do with the brand new camera that Snyder was using, apparently. It got really techie when I was reading about it, which is why I got bored reading, because it's more of a Stu thing, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, yes.
That shouldn't, because how can that happen then? Because if you're talking about dead pixels in the actual transfer image, then it'd look different depending on the size of the screen, surely?
I would have thought so.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, I watched it on, maybe that's why, because there is no pixels there, so I watched it on a projector, and I didn't see anything like that. Not one. So maybe it's how the HDR and the stuff like that works with certain brands of telly. As long as they don't stick, it ain't really a problem. But I've never heard of anything like that before.
I mean, don't get me wrong; it's more one of those slight inconvenience, as long as you don't think your telly's broke. So it's just one of those.
Was there anything else that stood out for you guys as being something you particularly loved about this movie?
You know, I ate a whole bag of popcorn in half hour, so I was so excitable, and it was sweet and salty this time because that's all I had in one stop on the day. So I kind of bowed down to a few guests mentioning a bit of salt. So, but it was just enjoyable. There's nothing really to so yeah. You can't. This is going to be a masterpiece. He's going to win everything, because it's obviously not. Dean summed it up perfectly when he 2-word answer. When I said, "Have you seen it?" He expected him to hate it, and he said, "Glorious nonsense." And
Right.
that's what it was. That's what I expected it to be, and that's what I got.
Matt, anything on your positives list?
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually hypercritical of films that try to be a jack of all trades and master of none. But I actually think they did a pretty good job in this, of when they wanted to ramp up tension and do it quite well. The scene where they are trying to make a path through all the hibernating zombies, I thought they did a pretty good job of that. That seemed like a throwback to God, what film did it remind me of? Not because it's zombies, but remember that scene in the original Resident Evil where they've got to try and get through all of the lasers?
Yeah.
It just I had the same tense feeling about it, like that. And then when they want to be funny, it's funny. But when they want to bring in kind of the emotions, for someone like Zack Snyder, who's got the subtlety of an elephant traveling through Wichita to Chelsea, is you know what I mean? He's not a subtle guy when it comes to what he tries to do. But I actually think it was done surprisingly well. You know, as we'll get onto plot wise, when there's certain deaths, it's done in not a sensitive way, but it's done in when it's meant to be heartfelt, it's heartfelt, and it's not something I usually attribute with his work. So I found it a massive positive, to be honest.
To be honest, I liked all of the scenes where they were fighting hordes of zombies. I thought they were all done really, really well. As you say, the tension was ratcheted up. They managed to keep it a decent pace as well, going through those. They started off slow and built it up. He did a really good job. So the scene where the first person of the crew gets killed, I can't remember her name. The one where she's tiptoeing through, and Garrett Dillahunt's character is sent to the wrong way. That scene was excellent. Like I was genuinely bricking it for her at one point. I thought she's going to get caught, and you think she's finally got caught, and then all of a sudden she just burst through the window to be with the team one last time to try and fight them off. I thought that was fantastic. And then there was a scene where they're actually fighting within the casino as well. when the street hood dude, when he gets killed.
Yeah,
Again, I thought it was done perfectly.
that's straight out of a computer game level. That is, if they turn that into a game, that's going in like shot for shot because it just felt so much like something out of a computer game.
Well,
Completely, that did.
the one where she jumps through the window, that's exactly. It's almost a complete. No, pardon the pun, it's a mirror of the dog scene in the first Resident Evil game.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. Um, what was that? I was going to say something there. I completely lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, I thought they did it was a really clever thing that when they first got into Las Vegas and they paid their penance to the Zombie King, that they then went straight inside rather than was walking through the city, because there's no way on earth that it was a $90 million budget. There's no way they could have filmed in Las Vegas on the streets, even during a pandemic. There's going to be people around. So they did a really sensible thing of saying, well, we can't be out here. Let's move it inside. So I think that everything they did made sense. It didn't feel like it was just shoehorned in. I thought that was quite clever. And again, not something I necessarily associate with Snyder movies.
Yeah, and even how they walled it off, just using shipping containers. It's genius. Because I mean, you ain't going to be like, unless you're like Trump and build an actual wall, which is impractical. How else are you going to keep a load of zombies who are not going to listen to you? Just drop shit on them. I thought it was a brilliant idea.
Was it?
It worked.
Did it? No, I know it did, but that was where the start of the kind of yeah, okay, we're gonna have to just leave the sense at the door, are we? Number one, the first thing where I noticed that was part of the film is when the trained special forces operator trips up like Mr. Bean and fires his gun in the middle of the desert. Like they've run away, they've escaped. Oh, Butterfingers, bang, 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 and like now I've given away my position. Come on now, that's not going to happen. But there we go.
So on to more of the bad side of things now. One thing that pissed me off straight off the bat, when they got into Vegas and the coyote said to them about the hibernating, when they weren't hibernated, they'd been stood out in the sun, so they'd basically died again almost. Their body had degenerated even further. And said, oh, but when it rains, you'll see it come back to life. And then it doesn't fucking rain.
Yeah.
Why tell us that? Why load Chekhov's gun and then not pull the trigger?
I thought that was gonna come back as like a sprinkler system in the hotel. That's what I thought. And that was in the back of my mind. Every time they were blowing shit up all the time, I thought, don't do it, because you know what's going to happen. You've been told about this, and it never happened. I quite like that, giving it a bit of jeopardy that didn't matter. I quite like that, to be honest.
It's not for me. Don't foreshadow something and then not pay it off. It pissed me off, that did. Because that's all I could think about for the rest of the film is when is this storm coming to wake up all of these zombies? And it never happened.
Well, I saw it the other way, like some kind of they're going to fall from a great height into the famous fountain in Vegas, and then they'd all crawl out of the fountain. Do you know what I mean? You know, outside the Bellagio, I think it is. They've got the famous. I thought something was going to happen. There was a massive centerpiece, and it never happened.
Like in Gremlins.
Basically, yeah. Which was just a bit of a shame, really. But I wish, and I know that they can build it up in a second, third, fourth, but I just wish there was a little bit more context to what was going on. You know, we're just, I suppose, much like how the characters are, we're just forced into it, and we've got to force to kind of make our own minds up about it as it's going along. But I think all the good stuff about this society of zombies, let's say, and how they operate, and that there's a general hierarchy there. Just a bit of explanation, a bit of backstory wouldn't have gone amiss, I think.
It was very superficial, and I mean that across the board. Everything you've just said, that was superficial, but actually the characters in it possibly needed a little bit more development over the course of a film. Like, I mean, Batista was driven by the fact that he had to kill his partner because she turned into a zombie, and he thinks that's how he's going to make it up with his daughter. Like, just give me a little bit more character development than that. and that was it. Like Dieter, the German dude, what was his motivation other than money? And that was pretty much the motivation for most characters, was just money, except for his the woman who, like the first person that Batista goes to, Cruz. The reason she's there, we then later find out she's there because she loves Batista. Like she thinks they could end up having a relationship, and then she immediately gets fucking killed. So that doesn't pay off. And ultimately, throughout the film, had she never said that line about actually having feelings for him, I would never have guessed, because at no point in the film is it even intimated. That relationship is never more than them just being, I say brother in arms, but obviously brother and sister in arms. That was pretty much all their relationship was. It was really poor, that was.
Is this then the overwhelming critique of Snyder and his script writers that he has on board and his direction, is that he needs about 4 hours to tell a story when anybody else can do it in 2?
Yeah, massively. I mean, even going back to obviously the 4-hour epic of Justice League, it took him a long time to actually tell a story that probably could have been told in 2 hours. And I think this film could easily have had 45 minutes cut out of it. And 2.5 hours for this very basic story is just unquestionably shit.
I don't know how it is as long as it is, but to me, it didn't feel that long at all. I was quite surprised. I had a double piss preparation for this because I didn't want to stop watching it at any time, and I thought, let's just settle down. Let's just get through it. So that's why I loaded the popcorn up as well, just in case, because it's been a while, and it never once felt long to me at all. But like you said, nothing really happened.
You've heard that before, haven't you, Stu?
Many a time.
It's never felt long and nothing really happens. I know what you mean, though. It's like I wasn't necessarily ever bored through it, and it never felt like 2.5 hours. But at the same time, I'm not really sure that I could talk you through it scene by scene and walk you through it, because it's one of those. It's a bit forgettable at parts, even though it's quite big and grandiose.
Yeah, I echo the sentiments of I was never bored, but at the same time I was never wholly excited.
Of course you aren't.
Like, it was just very even keel throughout. It was just fine-ish.
Yeah, I'm going to completely contradict myself here. You know how I said earlier about Jack of all trades, master of none? Like, they had a really good kind of thing going with the... or they could have done if they went down like the District 9 route with like the camps outside, and they've got these people that are there on the outside checking to see if they're exposed and they've got the virus, and it's never really explored, or it's a shame really, because he introduced these really interesting elements, and they mention it, and I thought it was a direct dig at Tenet. I know that's just because I want it to be. When he starts talking about, is this an infinite loop where we're all doomed to die in the end, and blah blah blah, and he makes a joke out of it. And I just thought, oh, that's a little snippet about Tenet this is, and about how futile it all is, and that they're always coming back to this moment and dying at this very spot. And then the conspiracy theories came out about a time loop as well with this film, which I thought was really entertaining. And I think they explore so many things, but then kind of cut it off at the source, which is a bit of a shame.
Could you imagine how terrible Tenet would be directed by Zack Snyder? It would be 8 hours long for a fucking start.
It would be, to be fair. I need, in the cold light of day, maybe I need to see Tenet again without having its bigger, more successful brother in Inception behind, like a week earlier.
You can't spoil perfection, can you? So there's no point even talking about it, even changing it one bit.
I mean, to completely change the subject and just talk about Tenet for a while, because why the fuck not? You do, and I'm not one for this kind of idea, but you do need to go in there just not thinking about it, because if you analyse it, it doesn't make sense. And I think that at the beginning of the film, they do tell you basically, don't think about it because it's bollocks, and that's the mindset you've got to go in there with, I think.
and the mindset you go into this film with as well. And a lot of films like this that, like, it's similar with The Walking Dead as well. It's never really explained how it happens. I know you have the CDC stuff in season 1, but it's never explained where it came from and why or how. It just did. So get on with it. It's not really the point of the film, is it? It's not really the point of the law. It's happened, and it's what happens afterwards is what counts.
I just don't believe that the Zeus the zombie, which sounds terrible, who can beat the best that the American special forces have to offer, can be contained by some shipping containers around Vegas. Like when like I want to see more of the shit going down and how they contain them all in, because I just don't think it would have happened. I think it's completely unrealistic from the off.
Well, no. Obviously, some of them would have escaped. It's like if you wait for ant season in a few weeks, and get some preparation and get some matchboxes and try and contain some ants with matchboxes and see what happens. Inevitably, some will get through the cracks and some will escape, but then you just boil them with a kettle. But they'll stay inside, guaranteed, unless they start climbing on each other like World War Z. But that's not this film, is it? They can't climb. They're stupid.
That's our Peter sponsorship down the pan.
Zeus was not really a zombie as such. He was a Superman almost. I mean, Zack Snyder has a fucking hard-on for having a Christ-like figure in all of his films. He's got a Messiah complex. Like, it's quite obvious about this. And that's what Zeus was. So, to put these shipping containers around him, you are right. Like, he could have punched through those quite fucking easily. It's not like he was just talking about a normal man. So, yeah, I don't think it actually makes sense now you've mentioned it. Like, Zeus is so much more than just a normal person turned zombie. He's a Superman turned zombie.
I mean, I loved the stuff around making a blood sacrifice to them and that there's a society there. I thought it was excellent. I loved that side of it, and I just wanted more of it. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I said about Zack Snyder's Justice League. They do some really good things, just do it better.
What if he was happy being in his own walled-in kingdom and being left alone?
That's the way it seemed. Like, to be fair, but I don't know. We're so akin to seeing like zombies that only one can be that starts the chain of events that causes the world to end. So the fact that like others will have escaped and then it'll all be fine is just something that we're just not used to with this genre. Do you know what I mean? There's like, and I know, and well, we've said spoilers already, so we can talk about it. And if you haven't paused at this point, you're never going to, so it's fine. The way it's left when he leaves, and now he's going to run amok when he gets off the plane. The world will hopefully go to shit, but we see it in like other areas of the world now. If there are going to be any sequels to it. What I do wonder, though, is for some of the things that we talk about Snyder-wise and some of his flaws, I'm wondering if because it was a Netflix feature that he's been reined in some areas, or he's had an overriding supervision to try and kind of keep the film on track, or something like that. I'd be interested to know how much of an impact the financial overlords had on what he did. I
mean, all stories about Netflix ventures tends to be that the creators get carte blanche almost. So whatever Snyder wanted, as long as he can do it within that $90 million budget, it's on him to do it if he wants. That's why I think a lot of the TV shows, they're always like at least one episode too many.
Yeah.
Because it's just the excesses of saying you can do what you want. So they always do that little bit too much. And Zack Snyder's always done that anyway, like regardless. So to do it for something like this, it was always going to be that little bit too much. What do we think about Zeus having a queen and zombies being able to have babies and all that shit? Like, I was really confused watching that stuff. Like, I don't know. That felt too much and it felt unnecessary to me.
I assumed she was pregnant before she turned,
Yeah.
but they've come out and said no, that they've come out and said they can have sex and they can reproduce that way.
Yeah, I thought it was because there was the blue hue to the. This is fucking horrific when you think about him pulling a baby out of a dead woman's stomach. But it had this blue alien-esque look to it. So that I always just automatically assumed it was Zeus's baby and she was his quote-unquote wife. I didn't like that. I didn't think it was necessary.
That's what I thought, the exact same thing at first. I thought, well, she must have been pregnant to start with. But then how that baby was a lot more developed than the time span of the world falling apart and that point. So in a world of all this other crazy shit going down, why wouldn't you? Why not? Why the tiger could have been pregnant as well? Who the fuck knows? But if it was an alien parasite of whatever, then that would make sense. To create this super Zeus alien zombie human hybrid thing. What? I mean, I'd long since given up trying to make sense of any of it by this point. And when he pulled the baby out, I just burst out laughing. I thought, what's going to happen next?
It's just so over the top.
He was already wearing a cape, riding a zombie horse with a tiger pet. To kind of break it down into any kind of common sense, there's literally no point.
I don't think it's a case of putting it to common sense. I think it's a case of just putting in the tip and not giving us anything else. Because it's another one of those.
He put in more than a tip.
Here's some foreboding, here's some story, here's something interesting, but then we're just going to take it away from you because you don't deserve it, you filthy swine.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? And
that's
that's what it was really like. I don't know. It was just. It was tapas instead of it being a main meal. It was a small plate of information when really you wanted to tuck in the all-you-can-eat buffet of this world.
I've got a feeling that all them air stewardesses are going to be pregnant in the next one. After the end of the fit, because he's comes to realize, he knows what he is. So once he hasn't fully turned, has he, on the plane? So he's kind of laughing about it. So, and they look like that for a reason. So it wouldn't surprise me if at least one of them comes back and the future ruler is inside of him.
Oh, with Vanderhoe, so that's Amari's character. There's one thing I liked and one thing I didn't like. So the one thing I did like was, and this was, he already had this tattoo, but he's got the Omega tattooed on his chest that you noticed. And with him now being, he was bit obviously by Zeus. So Zeus was the Alpha and he's the Omega. And I thought that's quite clever, even though that was already his tattoo. And it probably wasn't planned that way. And maybe I've just thought more than is there. But I like that idea. I think that could be something that could be played around with in the future. The one thing I didn't like, it's been at least 12 hours between him being bitten and him turning. Because he was bitten before he went into the vault, which then exploded and everything happened, and he went and stole the car and got into a plane. We've been through nighttime, daytime, and got back to nighttime, and he's only just turning, where everyone else turned within an hour or so. So I thought that was quite poor storytelling, like they're just changing the rules as they were going along.
It was only a flesh wound, though, to quote Monty Python, compared to all the other, when they've been savaged and ripped apart and there's blood everywhere. His is like a little nibble on his arm. So I'm trying to explain it away with nonsense, but it's, who the fuck knows? Yeah,
I assumed they were just not making a homage to, but going down the Ripley in Alien 3 route. Or is it Alien 3 or is it Aliens?
Yes, Alien 3.
Alien 3, where because she's got the Queen, she can seemingly hibernate it for about fucking 20 days or whatever it is. I assume they were going down that route with it.
Oh, that'd make more sense, I suppose. One of the things I hated in this film, and they could have cut out completely, was Kate Ward, Batista's daughter.
No.
I thought she ruined the flow of the film. The storyline didn't make sense. So she goes into Las Vegas purely to rescue her friend Geeta. So her whole purpose is there to find this other person. She finally tracks her down. They get onto the helicopter to escape. And then as soon as they get into the helicopter, the camera never shows Geeta again. Now, we're to assume she's in there and she died in the helicopter crash. But Kate never goes to check on her. We don't know if maybe she fell out of the fucking helicopter while Big Dave and Zeus were fighting. It was never shown, and that was the whole purpose of this film, was centered around this fucking character. I thought that... So Kate basically got everyone killed just for this person, who then we don't even give a shit about because we don't know what happened to her.
And then the kids are left with no one to look after them.
Yeah. But I thought everything involving Kate ruined the movie. It was utterly pointless. I don't know what she brought to the table.
I think it was just to give maybe some heart to Batista's character, that, you know, to shoehorn a bit of a story in there about the estranged father reconnecting with his daughter, kind of thing, which I wasn't sure was entirely needed, to be honest.
No.
Yeah, that's all. That's literally all she was. I mean, it was plaguing me. I thought, is she related to Summer Glau? Because she's looking very similar to her. But now that one's been brought up in the last few weeks as well. Or to just go and watch Firefly, get it over and done with. But
Great.
yes, who knows? It's it very much seemed like not just the viewer substitute kind of thing, but or viewer surrogate. It's more of a case of just she's a plot device.
She was the Jeopardy.
Given too many lines.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, there was nothing wrong with her. I mean, her performance was okay. It was just the character was, like you said, not really needed.
Unnecessary. If they'd have cut her, they could have saved themselves 30, 45 minutes easily, I think. She took up far too much screen time. Utterly pointless. So, with this world, obviously we mentioned a few times that there are possibilities of a future. There are actually at least 2 definites and a third possible series or film coming following this movie. So the first definite, we're getting a film called Army of Thieves. This is going to be set in the early days of the zombie outbreak. It is written by Shay Hatton, who co-wrote this with Zack Snyder. And it's going to be directed, produced, and starring Matthias Schweighöfer, who was Ludwig Dieter. It's going to be starring Natalie Emmanuel, who we know from Game of Thrones and Fast and Furious and My Dreams. And also going to be Guz Khan is also going to be in it, which I'm quite looking forward to that. I thought Dieter was one of the more interesting, humorous characters. And if they play that up, that's fine. It'll be a throwaway film, but I'd be quite looking forward to that. The other definite is an animated series called Army of the Dead Lost Vegas. It's a prequel to this film, again set in the early days of the outbreak, specifically within Vegas, and most of the cast from this movie are going to be returning. So everyone we've seen already, they're going to be back for this animated series. And the possible one is going to be a sequel set after this. So Zack Snyder has said that he and co-writer Shay Hatton, they've already done an outline for a possible sequel. So if it gets greenlit, they're all in. Deborah Snyder, so Zack's wife and partner in their production company, she said that it's likely to be set in New Mexico and it will have an international feel. There's more story to tell, and she knows that Zack and Shay have a lot of ideas fleshed out. If there's an appetite, then they are ready to go. Is there an appetite, Stu?
Oh, hell yeah. This sounds incredible. Well, the animated one, does it say how? Animated how? Or is it the Castlevania, the Netflix animated style that it seems to be kind of getting hold of at the minute?
Yeah, I think it is that sort of look, to be honest.
It's a bit anime, but not.
Yeah, it's like a hybrid between Eastern and Western animation styles. I've only seen stills from it, but it looks like it's that kind of thing.
Oh, even better then, because I love that Castlevania series. It's incredibly underrated considering what it is and the game, how popular the games are. And
yeah,
it being Netflix. No one talks about it ever apart from me.
It is very niche, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, bring it on. I can't get enough of this. I genuinely really enjoy myself watching it, and I want more. Just throw it all at me.
Matt, you excited for what's coming and what may be coming?
I'm not necessarily excited for the things that you mentioned there so much, but I'd like to see more of this world, and I want to see more of the story of how everything develops and everything like that. I think I've just got an unconscious bias against animated shows and stuff like that. I just don't have a lot of time for like, not watched any Clone Wars. I've not watched a lot of any of that stuff that Stu's shaking his head at. Yeah, I'd like to see more, and I'd like to know more about this world. If they released any kind of canon literature, I'd be interested in that. Do you know what I mean? To give me more of a backstory that isn't reliant on visual spectacle. If they want to give some more context in that respect, then yeah, I'd look forward to seeing it or reading it.
I agree. I'm quite looking forward to Army of Thieves, just because I thought the Dita was one of the more interesting, funny characters in this, and I think there could be something to it. But yeah, much like yourselves, I thought there was a germ of a really good idea in all this, and I think there is a lot to be explored.
I think the German was a problem to start with, to be honest.
Isn't that the way?
So the reviews, they have been mixed, shall we say? Would you like to have a guess at what IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes out of 10 or out of 100? Stu, what do you think?
Well, it's a fun film, so I'm guessing it's going to be around about 4 or 5, something like that. not. You'd have to think it all, dear. So 5.5, probably. 5.5 critics, audience. I don't know, because a lot of people don't like Snyder Day, so I think audience about 7.
Right. Matt, what do you think?
I think people will be a little kinder to it. I'd say kind of 6.5, 65, that sort of area.
So IMDb, it's got a 5.9. The Metacritics is a 57. The Rotten Tomatoes audience is a 75, and the critics is a 69. So really, the reviews are all over the place. Like, there's nothing you can say. No one seems to hate it, but no one seems to love it either. Looking through... Sorry, Matt, carry on.
Well, just for the reasons that we've explained, though, really, because it's thoroughly enjoyable, but at the same time, just isn't enough to get to. You know what I mean? It's if this was a football game, they've scored a goal, but they were part of a losing performance, so they get a 7 out of 10 because they've scored a goal.
I think if this was a match, it'd be like Portsmouth 7, Reading 4. The quality's not really all there, but it's entertaining as fuck and it's funny. But is that what you need for 2.5 hours? It was for me.
It did the job, I suppose. The reviewers, nothing over the top. Well, then actually, some were over the top with their praise, and some buried it under 6 feet of shit. Like, it was a bit of everything, actually. Mark Kermode of 5 Live fame. Not great, not terrible. It really could have been 90 minutes and done the same thing, which I don't disagree with at all. I think they could have got through this a lot quicker. There were side plots that, like Kate Ward, just utterly irrelevant. Kent Garrison from Mad About Movies. Only Zack Snyder could make a movie about a Vegas casino heist during a zombie apocalypse. Not an ounce of fun. It's actually impressive how bad of a director he is at this point, which I think is a little bit harsh. But Hilary A. White from the Sunday Independent. The reason Army of Dead rings hollow despite all of these things is that we aren't given enough to get behind when it comes to the characters. And without that, we don't come to feel their mission is necessary or the characters' lives are precious. And Donald Clark of the Irish Times, working on the Netflix charge cart, Snyder has the Snyder has a ball proving that cash can triumph on the largest scale if played with elan and enthusiasm. And Geordie Sirkin from Geordie Reviews It. Army of the Dead delivers great zombie carnage, funny comedic moments, and an unexpected winding set of potential theories. So the reviews are kind of all over the place, but I also think the film was kind of all over the place. So I do get that, really. I mean, my review would be, if I was to put it down, would be that it's an excellent start, a middling middle, and a bit of a shit ending. I kind of feel I feel a little bit unsatisfied, if I'm being perfectly honest with it. How would you review it, Stu? I mean, I know you said you love it, but sum it up in a pithy sentence, if possible.
If you can leave your brain at the door, you'll fully enjoy it. If you want something with a bit more of substance to it, then you're not going to get it with this. Simple.
Matt, can you review this film in 280 characters?
I can. Much like its opening scene, the anecdote to this film would be about getting a blowjob in a car. Sounds great in theory, and it probably starts off really well. But by the end of it, you know it's just not being done correctly, and you wished it was all over.
Never had
That
one
is
of them in the car,
perfect.
to be honest. Not what I've. It turns like I'm missing out.
Did it hurt your jaw too much?
I was going to say, you
Yeah.
don't drive, Stu, so you would be the giver.
There's only one way to pay for all these toys in this house.
Speaking of 280 characters, Matt, I think we've had some listener reviews.
Yes, we have. And we've had some absolute crackers as well. There's some really, really odd... for Twitter, which usually is the dirge of society, we've had some really good and insightful reviews. So Todd said, it was meh. If it wasn't for the tiger, it would have been a waste of a movie. Very little character development and weak story. Nothing really made you care about the characters. Zack Snyder has done 2 zombie movies, and each movie had a zombie baby. It's a bit weird. Which is absolutely right, yeah. And I think we've talked about that character development. Sconus shall rule again. Matt Cunnington, first time kind of interaction with the show. So thank you very much. Finally watched it last night. Very meh. Romero's film had a message. This didn't seem to. If the whole mission was to get the blood of a super zombie, they could have achieved that straight off. Out the container, use the cord gun, snag Queen Zombie's head and go. Which actually, why the ruse of trying to break into the bank and do everything else and make that mission all the more dangerous to risk them not getting what they needed. Massively fair point. That's something I hadn't even thought of. Dwayne Brown, again, another contributor that's new to us, at Invisible Labs. Zack Snyder makes bro equivalent of Hallmark movies. So
that is perfect.
As friend of the show, we think he's our friend. He probably doesn't. Tom Stade says, he talks about the Hallmark movies and how they're very, very set in the same kind of plot and the same tropes over and over and over again. And Zack Snyder, does make the high-fiving, jort-wearing equivalent of these, I guess. Absolutely fair point. Ash Dolan, the problem with this film is it was too middle of the road, not good enough to be great and not shit enough to be memorable. Some fantastic gore in death scenes isn't enough to save it from being a pretty forgettable zombie heist movie.
Yeah.
Again, pretty fair. But the greatest review of a film that you'll ever hear is from Andrew Wright. Now, I don't know if Stu will understand this, so I want Stu to tell me if he gets it. But he might not, because you need to know it's a bit too much. Dude, the love I had for this film was non-existent. A checklist of other and better films: Aliens, Dawn of the Dead, Predator. Also, considering the film was set in the desert, the amount of cactus on screen was jack. I just hope for mankind we see a better zombie film soon. It's very good, isn't it, really?
I love that review.
You need to read the tweet when you see this. But Andrew, excellent work, my friend. You are welcome on any time with a review like that, because I think we will be kindred spirits in our love of the secrets mentioned in this tweet. Thank you guys, though, for your reviews. Very, very nice job.
Yeah, summed it up perfectly. So, got 2 questions left for you fellas. Actually, 3. Anyone who hasn't yet watched this film, who has stuck with us to this point, are you recommending this movie to them? Stu, I know you've been enthusiastic about it. Are you telling them that they need to be streaming this one?
Yeah, I mean, even though we've kind of, if you listen to this all this way through, and it doesn't matter what we've told you because you'd still enjoy it because it's funny. It's funny and it's nonsense. So if that's your bag, then just go and do it. It's free. Well, everyone's got Netflix, so it is free.
Yeah. Matt, are you recommending folks give it a chance?
Yeah, I am. I think it's if not just to not feel left behind in the world, like just what. But yeah, you know, there's enough enjoyment there that I think one of its overriding positives is that it plagiarizes that many things that there's going to be something you enjoy in it.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, you will find some pleasure in it somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I would also recommend people watch it. I know I haven't been that enthusiastic about it, but I thought it was interesting. That's probably the best I can say about this film. It was interesting. There's stuff there to get you through it. Plus, even though I wasn't a massive fan of Zack Snyder putting music videos in Justice League, I thought the few musical cues in this, so the couple of times we hear Richard Cheese and the Elvis at the beginning, I thought they were really well done. Like, I was actually invested in the music videos that he did this time round. So just for those alone, I would say give it a chance. I think Ash put it when Ash said that it's what is it? It was never good enough to be great, and it was never bad enough to be memorable. I think there are some very good moments in it, and I think the bad stuff it does outweigh the bad, generally speaking. So I would definitely say to give it a stream. At 2.5 hours, you know, there are worse things you could be doing than watching this one. So, would you cast Nick Cage in this movie? Personally, I don't think I would, because the Cage we all want to see is the crazy Cage. And if we got Crazy Cage, the only role that's crazy enough would be Dieter. And I really liked that dude. I wouldn't want to see Cage take his place, actually. So this is the first time I'm saying I wouldn't want to see Cage in this film. Stu, would you? And if you would, who would you replace?
Identical. No, and for that reason, unless you put him in shitloads of makeup and made him into Zeus, but then you change the complete character into. I mean, has Cage done something like that I can't think off the top of my head, other than Collar, which I can't think of him wearing that much makeup to be viable in that kind of role. So no, I wouldn't. It's Cage for his own.
I mean, to be fair as well, Zeus, like, that dude looks like he belongs on Mount Olympus. And with the best will in the world, Cage isn't that person any longer, so I don't think that would work. So, but yeah. Matt, what do you think?
The only person who I think could, so if we were forced at gunpoint to do, would have been Tanaka, and have him be the one that's running the show, and that's the only person who I think could pull it off. But no, I don't think, you know, Cage isn't a bit part player. I know he didn't want to be in Left Behind, but he's not a bit part player. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think he would have fit in this film very well.
No, perfect. And then finally, I want you to finish off the sentence. If you enjoyed Army of the Dead, you may also like. Matt?
I'm going to recommend a romantic film now.
Right.
Because you know me, I'm full of romance.
You're all about the love.
I'm all about the love. Warm Bodies, 2013's Warm Bodies. Is that yours, Stu? Sorry, Stu. No, the reason I say this is because, for all the right reasons, this film was a different take on the zombie genre, and Warm Bodies sounds absolutely horrendous on the off set, but it's actually excellent, and it's a really playful and well thought out and just different zombie film that has no right to be as good as it is, and it's actually quite excellent. And everyone should see it, but I doubt many people have seen it.
Yeah, and you could actually get zombie babies in that, in theory. That's why that was the angle I was coming at it from, not for any thought. On the spot now. I wouldn't say watch anything because that's been stolen from me. I'd go and play Dying Light. Because if you want to just shoot and destroy loads of zombies, you got Left 4 Dead as well. And this did get, when I was watching this, when they were destroying hordes and hordes of people, it did get me in the mood to go and start Days Gone, you know. And I know that's free on the it was on PlayStation Plus last month. So if you haven't, might as well give it a go. But yeah, that's what I was thinking at the time. I thought, I'm in the mood to just slice through people now. And they're the same thing. They run at you as well, like they did in this. So
yeah, they do. Well, the second one's been announced. Only a couple or some trailers have come out for the second one only this week. Dying Light's an incredible game. There's basically 2 of them anyway. The DLC is that big. It's a second game.
Yeah.
Excellent as well.
Not for you, Andy. It's first person and it's like parkour. So it's...
Oh God, definitely on Chundering. You just reminded me of another film there, Matt. So there's a film called Life After Beth, and it's about a guy whose girlfriend comes back from the dead when he's just moving on. It's starring Dane DeHaan, Aubrey Plaza, John C. Reilly, and Anna Kendrick. I really enjoyed that. The film itself is okay, but that's a cast I love, so I'd give that one. But the film I was going to recommend is a film called The Girl with All the Gifts, which is a zombie film released about 5 years ago now, and it is Gemma Arterton. It does explain the zombie outbreak, that it is a sort of pollen that is infecting people. It's really good. She plays a teacher where she's trying to protect her students, and one of her students happens to be the cure to this zombie disease. It's really good. It was filmed in Dudley in parts in the West Midlands for our international listeners, like about 5 miles from where we're sat now. And other parts were filmed in Stoke-on-Trent, actually opposite my old office. So I remember watching the film, like, I recognise those areas, and there was a reason, because I've actually been there like that very day.
Well, that's a very clever move, that is, from the directors there, because they wouldn't have needed to have made it look like the end of the world. Just gone straight to Stoke.
Yeah. Well, I even sent in my CV to try and get into the film because they were after extras.
No way. That's quite cool, that is. Slightly disappointed, because when you said Gemma Arterton, I immediately thought you were talking about Gemma Atkinson of Hollyoak fame.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, but I love Gemma Arterton. She's like... The St. Trinians with the long, dark, bobbed hair was just peak Gemma Arterton for me.
Gemma Atkinson was another poster on the wall situation from a few weeks ago. But no, while we're just throwing out all zombie stuff, let's hopefully one-time friend of the show, if we ever get there, Raoul Coley and iZombie.
That'd be the dream, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a clever twist on the zombie genre. Brilliant call, that is, Stu. Have you seen that one, Matt? I think you have, haven't you?
I've watched it through, Sam. Like, it's been on. I've watched an episode or 2 at a time. Then I've come back like 5 episodes later, and I've said, "Oh, what's happened to XYZ? Why is so and so doing this? Why is so and so doing that?"
It's a bit like the Sunset Overdrive as well. That's kind of monsters based on an energy drink.
Oh, right. Okay, I didn't know that. Fantastic.
It's not right.
Oh, okay. Right. Superb. So that is us done for another week. It's a question cast up next time. We'll put out a call for our questions probably later today. If I remember, I will make a note as soon as we're done. Make sure you've got us followed on your podcatcher, and that you've got us on the Twitter at CageFightingPod. Get your emails into cagefightingpod@gmail.com, please. And if you could leave us a review, you know we'll love you forever. So for this week, Matt, would you like to say goodbye?
Take it easy, guys. Look after yourself.
Stu, would you like to say goodbye?
It's a goddamn zombie tiger that's crossing the line.
And it's goodbye from me. And remember, be excellent to each other.
There's a version of this movie that was shot in the 80s that's just a mindless shoot 'em up, soldiers versus zombies in a casino. Can you talk about how you guys worked on those human moments amidst the carnage so that we would care about your characters?
Sure. I mean, that was what what drew me to this film, because initially when I heard about the film, I thought it sounded interesting, and but I wasn't as a performer, I wasn't interested in the project because I was really looking for roles that would afford me the opportunity to perform and be an actor and do some some dramatic stuff. I wanted to showcase my range as an actor. And a lot of times you just can't do it when you're playing an action hero. So I thought that's what the film was. And then I was asked to read the script, and I did. And I started looking at it differently. And I started looking at the character of Scott Ward differently, because I realized that everything else, the zombie apocalypse, the heist aspect, there was all kind of backdrop to the real heart of the story, which was a redemption story between Scott Ward and his daughter. So I looked at it like that, and I focused on that. And I had the conversation with Zach about, diving in deeper to this character and making it even richer, and making him even more emotional and giving him more depth. And Zach said he would allow me the freedom to do that, and he actually welcomed it, which is why he wanted me to play the role. And so I was like, man, sign me up, because that's what I'm after. Like I get to accomplish a lot of things in this film. Like I get to be that badass, but I also get to be like an emotional guy, an unpredictable action hero. Which you don't see a lot, because you usually know what you're going to get with an action guy. But if you give him some heart, give him some depth, and think outside the box, and think if this guy is a human, and you get people to invest in him emotionally, then people get invested in the film emotionally because they're invested in the story. And that's what you do to make a successful film. Take people on a roller coaster, get them involved. And, every once in a while, just, make them laugh. You make them laugh, you make them cry, you scare them a little bit, and you give them a very strong ending that leaves them wanting more. And that's like a winning formula.
That would work.
Copy that.